One of the best things about the barbecue community is the camaraderie that quickly develops among the people who've shared goals of not just making great barbecue, but goals of helping other people while honing their meat smoking craft. Today, we're going to meet one of those hardworking pitmasters, Kyle Sutton. He's got a great story to share about his barbecue journey and his mission to an important need in his Carolina community. Welcome to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, Kyle.
Shaker, thank you for having me, sir. Happy to be here.
Yes, looking so forward to talking to you more. And Kyle's going to tell us about his Barbecue for Babies organization, how he found his way to the barbecue smoker, and some of the secrets of the trade he's developed lately. Just keep listening. You're going to find out some of the tips on how you can deliver a barbecue impact to nonprofits in your community. And of course, you can get advice from other pitmasters in the Low and Slow Barbecue Show at lowslowbbqshow.com. You'll find all our interviews as well as blogs with recipes, tips, commentary, all that at lowslowbbqshow.com. We've also got a new YouTube channel, videos of podcasts, barbecue tour stops, video interviews with great pitmasters like Kyle and from our Carolina Barbecue Festival in Charlotte, which again brings us back to Kyle. I was so excited to get on the phone with him after meeting him and kind of crossing paths with him at that Carolina Barbecue Festival in Charlotte back in April of 2024. So that's certainly a great organization. And you've got one too, Kyle, I know. But before we kind of get into the organization that you've created, let's talk about, Kyle. How did you get into smoking meat low and slow?
So I'm a native North Carolinian. There are about 5 of us left. So I grew up on the eastern side of Wake County, just like 45 minutes or so from Wilson. So really phenomenal whole hog barbecue was always very close by. Now, this is at a time when barbecue isn't trendy. You don't have Aaron Franklin, CNN, it's still cheap, feed a crowd food.
Yeah.
And I moved away from home and really missed good barbecue. So I kind of got into it. Young lady I was dating at the time got me a crock pot indoor barbecue pit, and that's really just a big red crock pot. And within 6 months, I've got smokers on my patio at my apartment. Very much against the rules of the complex, and got the bug, and it escalated from there.
Yeah, wow, that's a great matriculation from crock pot to the real thing. Because there are some people that say that crock pot don't count.
It does not, because you miss the smoke. I'm like, okay. The texture is there, the flavor is not.
Yeah,
it doesn't sit right in my spirit. We had to fix it, man.
That's right. So, how did you expand from that personal exploration into, supporting and collaborating some other pitmasters out and around the Carolinas?
Yeah. So as I got into barbecue, I wanted to hone my craft further. Went into a barbecue class, set under Chris Prieto. Oh goodness, well over a decade ago.
Okay.
He's gone on to do a bunch of great things. Prime Barbecue, Chopped, Food Network. He's everywhere.
Yeah.
But at the time, he was still a project manager at a clinical research company at the time called Quintiles and catering. So I kind of got on the Prime Barbecue train very early. He became barbecue sensei, upgraded to a commercial smoker. I started doing comps on the weekends, so kind of some backyard, some KCBS. I realized very quickly, I don't want any of the things that come from competition, right? I'm not after a restaurant or a cookbook or a sauce deal. I'm just competitive, and I like feeding the crowd. I care about hospitality. I like making meat. So right about that time, as I'm having this epiphany moment, I had a good friend that he and his wife were adopting. And I knew kind of anecdotally that adoption was expensive, but I didn't know how expensive. This is over 4 years ago. And, they just said, give me a human baby, no preference on gender, ethnicity, country of origin, disability, just a human child. And it was like $35,000, right?
Wow.
And that's the low end. Okay.
Yeah.
If you do international adoption, you got to go be in country for weeks at a time. Some of these are 6 weeks, so much so that adoption loans are an industry. So I said, hey, I love you and your wife. You're an important part of my life. We can do one of two things. I can write a check one time, or if we put that money into some pork butts, I think we can scale it a couple of times and take kind of a chunk out of what you guys have to raise. And I did that, and Butts for Babies was born. It's still very much kind of a grassroots thing. It's all, word of mouth, just kind of people kind of in their community that heard about it and have attended. But a few years in and dozens of kids later, it's a good time, and it's a project that's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, Butts for Babies, a great idea. I love to hear how that kind of got started there. Now, I'm going to get some tips from you a little bit later on, but maybe first talk about what are some of the success and challenges of coordinating a charitable endeavor, really making that move from the barbecue pitmaster who just loves smoking meat into being somebody that's kind of coordinating something that's doing good for somebody else.
It was surprisingly easy. This was kind of based around like a church community as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like my word, if you can't sell pulled pork barbecue to Baptists in North Carolina, like just go home. You're bad at everything.
Yeah.
So it actually, like once we had the model, it was actually really straightforward. So like issue one was, to do this well, you have to have capacity, right? So I think I was cooking on like Meadow Creek BX50, which is a pretty good size. It's like the size of a refrigerator. It's an upright box smoker. It probably does 24 butts, but this thing kind of ran away from us out of the gate, and I had to do 36 or so. No, more than that. It was like 52 butts that we did that first run. So I actually cooked them on an Euler, which is a large like rotisserie model smoker. I think the one I use actually it's one of the three that sit in Prime Barbecue today. It was mounted on a flatbed trailer. Chris did not have the restaurant. And so like getting capacity was issue one. The second part was figuring out like operationally what model makes sense, right? Because you could go just kind of cash and carry, but your goal is to maximize sales, minimize waste, and sending that family home with as much cash as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So the model we went to was a pre-sale model, right? We, buttsforbabies.com/whatever family, order in advance, pick up while you're there. But Michael, barbecue is an imprecise science. The yields vary based on the marbling of the meat, how long it cooked. Like 1,000 things affect how much you yield. There's a rough formula, but you always have some extra. So we did cash sales for the extra. And then the last piece is just labor, logistics. So I'm not a restaurant. I don't have a team of professional meat cutters and sauce makers and the whole bit. But it actually becomes a really fun kind of family activity, right? We kind of put the ball in the court of the family to say like, hey, we're going to provide know-how and labor and some seed investment on supplies and infrastructure. But, the night of, I'm going to need, you and your family to come to my place out here in Holly Springs and actually season some pork butts and make slaw and, get out back on the burner and make a pot of sauce. And that's great. It's actually a really great time. It's a bonding activity.
Sure.
Their community. I mean, we've never had a deficit of people. If anything, we've had too many. So barbecue is so culturally relevant. Like, I need 3 people for the night, and now I've got 8 people in my house that I have to like entertain. 78-year-old Mima is not really helping with the barbecue, but like try to talk her out of not coming, right? Like,
right, definitely. So, well, so how much you guys moving during the course, and sorry to kind of interrupt you and hope I have not distracted you, but how much you guys moving for one of these Butts for Babies events?
It really varies greatly. I would say on the low end, just in like raw product, we're probably coming in at like 200 pounds of product or so. But again, like the size of this thing really hinges on the network of the family, right? This thing spreads far and wide. They're on sports teams, the chamber, the Rotary Club, like I'm a big deal on Facebook, like whatever it is. We've had some engagements that it's been 600, 800 pounds of raw product. So, it's a decent chunk of pork just to turn out on a Friday night. Again, for a home cook, right? Different equation if I'm, a restaurant somewhere, but for a backyard, it's a legit operation.
So what's next? What's next for Butts for Babies now that you guys are sounds like you got the wheels very well in motion?
Yeah, we're kind of at a crossroads where, I could do word of mouth indefinitely, right? Like that's a thing that's self-sustaining. I also realize there's room to help a lot more people if we scale. Looking at, hey, do we bring on potentially, one or two full timers? So that's kind of the crossroads we're at. Like it's pretty far from my my actual vocation. So I work in tech marketing. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I help software companies go public.
Yeah.
So figuring out, like, one, do I want the kind of do I have the time for this other project? And what would it take in terms of finances, commitment? Like it's a little different when it goes from, hey, this is a volunteer project, to like, okay, I have to run this thing as a business that pays its own rent, and we're trying to decide whether or not to jump. There are a few ways it could go.
Yeah, that's very exciting, and certainly there's other folks that have made that path, but it's always a tough decision between the main hustle and the side hustle. No matter how good the cause is at the end, the main thing is trying to keep something like that going for a good cause in the community. And that's great of you guys. So take just a moment. You talked a little bit about who Kyle is. Tell me about your experience in the barbecue life. What do you enjoy most about being in that world?
I would say by a very wide margin, my favorite thing about barbecue is the people. And that sounds corny, but it's totally true.
Yeah.
I've not met a more open and hospitable group of folks, like to absolute strangers, than in the barbecue community. So like my relationship with Chris just came out of a meeting. I've met some not just nationally known, but like world renowned pitmasters just by kind of hanging out at the restaurants. So like I got to know Aaron Franklin pretty well just by going to Franklin's, years ago. And Aaron was there that day, and he like came out and spoke to people, and he vanished. And I said to the cashier that I'm checking out, like, hey, I'd love to meet Aaron. He's like, yeah, that was your moment, 30 seconds ago. He's gone now. I go to leave, and a woman says, no, come over here. And so she has me stand up on a bench, and I'm peeking over through like an upper ventilation vent, like a mesh, like screen door sort of thing, into the pit. And Aaron finally goes, man, all right, quit being weird. Just come inside and hang out. And so I spent like hour and a half with Aaron. Similar story for like Rodney Scott down in Hemingway. So there's not so like as people see that, like, hey, you're sincerely interested, you're kind of a student of the craft. They're very open to kind of hanging out, sharing knowledge, sharing technique, being in touch in meaningful ways. And that by far, and that is my favorite part of barbecue.
Yeah, definitely encountered a similar experience at guys like, Robbie Robinson down at City Limits or at Fort Grove. Troy out there was extremely hospitable to me down there. The people, I'm sorry, at Palmyra down in Charleston, South Carolina, definitely similar experiences there. And it's great. Just like you said it, if you demonstrate some interest in what they're doing, you've got some genuine appreciation for what they're doing, they're always welcoming you, to kind of come in and learn more about that. So, tell me, Kyle, what is your barbecue specialty? What do you feel like you do the best?
No, you're exactly right. And I think about even where we met was kind of the first of an experiment. So I got to know Elliot Moss just through him being at Buxton Hall, then us kind of staying in touch. Like I met him at a festival up here in Bahama like 8 or 9 years ago, and we just kept in touch. And I finally said, hey, like, the comp thing taught me a bunch. This fundraiser taught me a bunch, but I haven't really leaned into kind of like the higher end, like chef side of barbecue, like somebody like Elliot specifically that has like a fine dining background and now brings that know-how into the barbecue world. So I just sent him a text. Hey man, I want to like come learn some stuff. Let me just pop up to your next festival and put me to work. And he did. And we've done it a few times now, and it's kind of our thing. And as I've talked to other pitmasters, like, yeah, if you want to come, be useful, the doors are open. So you were asking about my specialty. So it's funny, man. Being from, Eastern North Carolina, whole hog barbecue will always have my heart. That's one of my favorite bites of barbecue, is a little bit of several parts of the pig. But as I got into competition, I was going to like Central Texas quite a bit and just spending time there, partially for work. We do a Monday a Thursday to Friday in the office, then take Saturday, go hit the barbecue trail. So I've got a deep love for all things beef as well. Like I make a pretty rockin' brisket, a beef rib. I'm grinding like a pretty legit Texas sausage also. So, I think it's less about kind of, an individual specialty and more about being able to appreciate kind of the pantheon of barbecue goodness that our nation has to offer. And that's where I'm at.
Yeah, yeah. And so I guess that kind of is the same answer for what do you enjoy eating the most? It's one amongst the variety and appreciating, everything that's out there to offer as opposed to just picking just one thing over another, right?
Exactly that, man. Like I will say when I'm out and about, when I'm trying a restaurant, for better or worse, Texas barbecue has been kind of adopted as like not even the national standard, the international standard, right? So
Uh-huh.
almost wherever you go, you can pretty reliably see. And so, I'm good for kind of the pulled pork brisket rib combo or the rib brisket sausage. I think a sausage says a lot about a restaurant. You can learn kind of their seasoning, their technique, like there's a lot that goes into producing a good sausage, and I just love to kind of experience that, man. So again, that's a non-answer answer. That answers many things, but that's where my head is.
No, that's great. That's great to get a good insight there. So, as you mentioned, we've had some involvement with the Carolina Barbecue Festival in Charlotte, and I know that you've done a few different events like that. How does what we're doing here in the Carolinas compare to what you were finding out west in Texas specifically? Are we in the game? Is there? And I'm sure again, there's probably peaks and valleys, but what are your perspective on how we're performing compared to what they've got?
Oh yeah, man. I would say the not even just North Carolina, but the Carolinas as a
Hmm.
whole are
Yeah.
very much in the game.
Mm.
So in my years on the road, I also got to know Daniel Vaughn, so the Texas Monthly barbecue editor.
Yep.
And he spends time in the Carolinas, finding kind of adaptations of Texas barbecue. And there's a lot to love. I mean, I'm just thinking about within a 2 hour radius of my home outside of Raleigh, John G's Barbecue near Charlotte,
Hmm.
who Daniel called the best Texas barbecue in North Carolina.
Yep.
Prime Barbecue out in Knightdale, which is my hometown. In the Durham area, Mike D. So Mike De Los Santos doing some amazing stuff. Smith Smokehouse and Smoothies down in Wake Forest, Lawrence Barbecue, Jake Wood out in Durham
Yeah.
doing some really, really incredible barbecue. And so it's good to see these folks that are cooking and not just making a splash locally. A lot of folks in that kind of list I fired off from the hip are making splashes nationally
Hmm.
as well. If you look at the events, if you talk to these folks individually and you hear about the events they're working on, where they technically can't drop the name of the celebrity that they're working with, but I mean they're doing some great things. So without a doubt, the Carolinas are on the map in a big way.
Yeah, that's encouraging to hear. A lot of those guys that we've been fortunate to have there on the on the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. I know you mentioned Jake there. He's a great guy. Really got some cool stuff going on in
Jake's
that
great,
part of
man.
the state for sure.
I stole
Yeah.
my pork technique from Jake, man. He didn't even know. I've never told him to his face, but it's true, man. So Jake was on Moonshiners, the smoke ring,
Uh-huh.
okay? And he was talking about his technique for pork. Now, so the conventional wisdom on pork is like, hey, I'm going to pump a lot of sugar into my rub. Jake does none of that, man. He puts out a really phenomenal pork. So he puts on his pork, man. He says on the show, this is not like a secret. It's really just a combination of like salt, black pepper, maybe garlic. And once I pulled the sugar from my rub, now you have the ability to push pork hot and fast. And
Mm.
that's a game changer, man. Jake is phenomenal. Like similar thing, man. Similar to Elliot, fine dining background, brought that into barbecue, man, and
Yeah.
the end result has been incredibly delicious.
Both of them pushing the envelope for sure. And it's cool. It sounds like you got some cool connections to those guys. Tell me, where do you turn for advice in a moment and maybe better ideas is for inspiration? You mentioned Jake and Elliot, obviously, but if you've just got a moment where you need an idea, where do you go for that?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I love about barbecue. I mean, I think when you're developing your individual technique, kind of like how in life you're the average of your five closest friends. I think your cooking technique is kind of drawn from people you find to be inspirational as well. So, man, as of late, fire management has been like heavy on my mind.
Hmm.
Okay, So if you look back at like Aaron Franklin's first book, where he talks about, people thought it was going to be a cookbook about brisket. It was 75% like fire making. And so I've really been kind of like focused on the different ways to manage and use a fire. And man, as of late, nobody, in my opinion, does that better than Elliot Moss, who we spent the day with in Charlotte. Man, I just watch the things he does intuitively, and it blows my whole mind. I mean, I know we're on time, but some of the things I've seen him do, man. He built a giant wok over a burn barrel in Bahama and made some of the best sides I've ever had. In Raleigh, we cooked a gang of pork loins, okay, because it had to be done kind of like quick. It was the morning of, whatever, and he did them on a BQ, which is normally used for like a whole hog. So he takes out the deflector plate, he burns wood down to coals, and builds really like a 3-zone fire, man. A hot, direct, kind of a medium heat, indirect, and then an upper cooling rack. And man, just the things he's able to do. I mean, I've seen him cook a 50-gallon stock pot on basically like a travel grill. He has a little probably like 14 by 13 grill he sells called the Priscilla. And I've seen
Priscilla,
him cook, I own Priscilla, man. It's phenomenal. And I've seen him cook a massive stock pot on, basically a grill that is like a better version of what you find in a state park, man. And so it has such an impact on the quality of your food, good smoke versus bad. If you've ever bitten into a thing and it tastes like gasoline, that's bad smoke from a fire that's not burning the right way, man. And so like that idea is basic, man. But I'm blown away with just the versatility of what you can put out, almost irrespective of equipment, if you understand the fire management side, man. So that's been kind of the inspo, the exploration, the how do I get better, and that's what I'm looking through right now.
Yeah, and how much of the varieties of wood or the wood variety does that play into the fire management? Have you got to do different things for different woods as they burn in different ways?
For sure. And this is where you get into kind of like all the variables that affect the way your fire burns, right? It's the variety of wood because, some burn hotter than others. It's the age of the wood, how long they've been cut, right? Because, there's kind of a sweet spot of about, a year, give or take, where there's enough moisture in the wood that it still imparts good flavor, but it's not so wet that it won't burn. You can get too dry, where you get a lot of heat, burns hot and fast, not a ton of flavor. So that's a factor. The variety of wood, to your point, imparts, that flavor profile is going to change. So like I'm an advocate of using just what's local. So in North Carolina, that's white oak, red oak, hickory, some pecan, and that's what works for me. But if you go down to like Texas, like post oak on paper reigns king, but you pop in and see a guy like Miguel Vidal at Valentina's Barbecue doing some incredible like Tex-Mex barbecue, and he cooks on mesquite, okay? And the misconception on mesquite is that it's too overpowering to really cook with, man. But his barbecue is sweet and mild and delicious, man. And that goes back to like the management side, man. So it really does make a difference.
Yeah, really sharing some great secret time insight here for us, some of the intimate details of your barbecue journey, Kyle Sutton, and again, originator of Butts for Babies. And I really do appreciate you joining us today. You've shared with us a secret recipe. I'll get to that in just a second, but let me kind of go back to the Butts for Babies piece. If I'm somebody out there that wants to get started doing this barbecue for charity idea, maybe what's a little bit of advice that you'd offer to someone to do that? Because I know that it's more common. I've thought about doing it myself, and I know some other people that do it. So what's some advice you would offer to those folks looking to try to do that?
Well, yeah, it's a good question, man. And I think, one of the angles that we thought about for Butts for Babies was, is there a version of this thing where we kind of like open source the model, right? So like the accessibility of what we're doing is not a thing I want to gatekeep. So yeah, I would say this, like, you're almost certainly going to be rolling on pork butts. Like don't overdo it. I've seen cookouts that, aspire to, 6 meats and 4 sides. Like, nah, this isn't like we're trying to replicate the experience of going to like, like a well-known barbecue spot. Like we're doing this thing for profitability and scale. So you're probably doing pork. You're maybe doing a super simple slaw, like literally a slaw mix from like, Costco, Sam's Club, Restaurant Depot, or you're just cutting cabbage, chicken, and some carrot, Duke's mayo, salt, pepper, be blessed. Like that's the whole thing. And maybe like a side, like a chip, man. That's the model. I would look at where a lot of people lose their shirt on barbecue is in seasonings and sauces. So you're going to plan to make those yourself. So you're going to look at things you can produce, easily, cheaply, that taste good, that stand up to the cooking method. And lastly, just talk to folks, man. So, I mean, I'll leave my contact I'm sure they'll be in the show notes, man. I'm passionate about other people kind of getting involved. So if you have questions, give me a shout, and I'm always happy to kind of talk about it, unpack it, talk about your model and how to pull it off, and we can go from there.
Yeah, we'll definitely share that link in the notes and elsewhere throughout the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. Let's talk about that secret recipe, and I'm not going to give all the details away. We'll get it out there in the blog here eventually. And but first, tell me what you've shared and why you feel like this is a recipe that was important to share with our audience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to share my my house seasoning, my all-purpose rub. So this is coming from that conversation with Jake. Kind of realizing that he doesn't use any sugar in his rub. So I said, like, hey, I need a good kind of like Texas-esque rub to go in a lot of places. And so this is that rub, man. It's good on pork just as a standalone. It's good on really any protein. So I threw it on pork chops last night that I seared. I put it on chicken. I put it on fish. Man, if I'm feeling fancy, if I'm doing veggies in the house, I mean, literally a bag of frozen veggies in the microwave, 5-minute steam, drain them, tablespoon of butter, some of this rub, squeeze a lemon, a little bit of parm. It's like you're at a steakhouse, man.
Yeah.
On a brisket, you can use this totally on a brisket, or you can pair it with a more traditional beef rub, and then use this as kind of a pop spice, man. So, do I just read the recipe now, or how do I?
Yeah, why don't you just hit me kind of the parts of it, because I'm slow on getting these things up on the blog, and I want people to hear it because I know that it's going to be a good thing. So, fire away.
It's super easy, man. Cup of kosher salt. I'm non-conventional. Okay, I'm a Morton's kosher salt guy, not a Diamond. Okay, I like the kind of the bigger chunks versus like the flakes that dissolve.
Yeah.
A cup of coarse black pepper. So that's like a 16 mesh black pepper. If you go to a spice shop, if you're at more of like a traditional store, it's maybe marketed as like a butcher grind. It's not like the coarse, like just cracked pepper that's almost like peppercorns, but like the one down from that. 3 tablespoons of granulated garlic. This is not garlic powder. This looks like kind of like the granules of garlic, not the powder. And then there's a tablespoon of cayenne for some heat. Now the cayenne is an optional thing, but I like a little spice, a little burn in the back end.
For
Not
sure.
overpowered. You know it's in there. And that's the whole thing, man. I mean, I make that pounds at a time and use it throughout the year, man. It's good stuff.
Wow, sounds like a good flavor profile, like you said, that'll go through a lot of things. But I like to add a little bit of kick, so I'm going to go with some more of the cayenne and kick it up there.
Get the cayenne in there, man. You want the cayenne. You really be like, a little heat. You'll be fine.
Well, if it's Eastern style, for sure, because you got a little bit of that pepper there in the sauce and everything else around there. So, that's a good spot to kind of bring it down to the Low and Slow showdown here. Just a few quick hitters that we'll get through and maybe get a little bit of explanation here on the back end here from Kyle. So, first of all, right out of the gate, Kyle, what's your favorite wood?
For me, it's white oak from Pickin' One.
Okay, and why is that?
So it's local here. So a lot of like the flavor of what is traditional Carolina barbecue is rooted in that. It also exists really well in like a lot of Texas cues. So I like having a wood on hand that regardless of what style I'm aspiring to cook to, it's gonna fit and work well and do justice to that region.
Okay, we've talked about your favorite to cook and maybe your favorite to eat, but what about those sides? What's your favorite side in a barbecue plate?
So, man, it's almost a different answer. So if I'm home, I want a good custard bake, like Southern style mac and cheese. I make one that's pretty rocking. I love a good kind of collard green with a smoked meat as well. Honestly, man, tougher to get depending on what restaurant you're in. Now, I've seen there's some of my friends that do a pretty rocking mac. But I also like to kind of play it safe as well, man. I love a good baked bean alongside barbecue. Man, I'm having fun with some of these like non-conventional sides as well, man. So Lawrence Barbecue out in Durham is doing a pretty rocking broccoli Caesar. Chris Prieto out in Nightdale, man, has a smoked sweet potato salad. Okay, so like chunk sweet potato, like sour
Yeah.
cream, bacon. You didn't know you needed in your life, man, but it is.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds sounds fantastic. So, the best state in these United States for barbecue?
Oh man, I think that's such a tough question and so controversial, man.
That's what we're all
Uh,
about in barbecue, controversy.
right? I don't know, man. That's the thing, man. So years ago, you would see true regional style, man, but barbecue is such a popular export, right? You're hard pressed to. Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. And if you go to a Texas spot, you're gonna see like more. But man, I've had really rocking Texas barbecue in South Carolina, right? I've had like phenomenal St. Louis ribs in New. I can't even answer, man, because it's just gone so far and wide, man. I look at a guy like Tyson Ho, right, who at
Right.
one point was doing, he sat under Ed Mitchell for a minute, man, and he was doing like Eastern NC whole hog in freaking Brooklyn, and doing it well,
Mhm.
doing it well. So I mean, I can't even pick a state, man. I'm forever on the road, trying good barbecue. Again, it's a non-answer, but that's the truth for me.
That's fair enough. I'm gonna get another non-political answer out of you too here. So, the best Carolina barbecue style, Eastern, Western, or South Carolina mustard?
Okay, man. I'm an Eastern guy, man. That's just home for me. That's what I grew up with. I appreciate the Lexington style. I do think the red slaw, again, is an acquired taste that I've not yet acquired, but
Whoa, that's a big
I,
expose here.
I
Wow.
know, man, tomatoes and cabbages don't want to be friends. Again,
Huh.
literally half the state disagrees with me, and they're
Yeah.
probably right, man. But for me, Eastern Carolina pepper vinegar sauce, chopped
Chopped.
from
Excellent.
whole hog.
So, is it better with or without the sauce?
So that's the thing, right? If you look at, if you look at what a guy like Ed Mitchell, right, a literal legend in the space. If you look at how their approach to hog, man, there wasn't like a with sauce or without. Like adding the sauce was just part of pulling it, right?
Mhm.
Like as we pull the hog, we're gonna apply, apple cider vinegar, salt, pepper, some either like straight red pepper or red pepper hot sauce, and that was it. And then like more on the side. And so I think the idea of like unsauced barbecue is kind of a misconception. Now, extra sauce or not, right? Important question. I like the heat. I like vinegar. I like salt. So I'm an extra sauce guy. But if you're having like a chopped whole hog, there's almost certainly some sauce applied at the time of pulling and cutting.
Favorite non-barbecue meal in your Raleigh-Durham area?
Ooh. Okay, so this is gonna be a sleeper. So I live in a town called Holly Springs. There's a little Italian bistro out here called Asteria G. Joe and Ashley Reines, phenomenal folks. They moved down from New York, took it over, and turned around what was a very middle of the road restaurant, and man, made it phenomenal. So, man, I've eaten Italian all throughout the country. I've spent a good amount of time in Italy. Man, I'd put these guys up against almost anyone. I mean, this guy's a mad scientist. I was there a few weeks ago. He did a short rib pansati. I never had a pansati, man. It's like a purse shaped ravioli,
Ah.
and he filled it with like short rib and like a little short rib jus.
Mm.
And this is a town with not a lot. Like we have a lot of chain restaurants here, not a lot of independent restaurants.
Mhm.
And this blew my mind. So if I'm not cooking at home, you can normally find me there doing like a tasting menu because like I trust them, I trust their palates, and the food is rocking.
Yeah. Now you've shared a few ideas for, the best barbecue in the triangle. I know you mentioned Lawrence, and you can't ever pick one. As you said, it depends on the weather, your mood, what you're looking out for. But what are maybe three that you would recommend? And are there any that you haven't gotten to yet that you want to try to get to soon?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, if you're coming to the area and you're gonna do like just three, and even then, man, that's so tough. Okay, I would definitely say like for Raleigh, Durham area. You want to go hit Prime in Nightdale, and just good food, good people. Man, what's funny about Prime is the quality of their pit room is actually there. It's a more grand scale than anything I've actually seen in Texas, man. You wouldn't expect that in North Carolina, but they have 3 oilers on top of full kitchen, flat top, pit cooker for BQ. Like, you might see a bunch of oil drum stick burners, but I mean, they have 3 of the highest end smokers in the business, and then the food itself is incredible. So definitely Prime. I would also, I'd kick in Lawrence Barbecue as well, man. So as I mentioned, Jake came from fine dining, so the barbecue there is always incredible. But when he plays around with other items on the menu, he's kind of cooking from he's from one town over in Apex, man. So he's cooking from kind of his home heritage as well. So you'll go in and you'll see like Granny Helen's apple dumplings or Aunt whatever's fried. I mean, so like the sides are incredible. And then like because he has a seafood background, man, you'll see like a fried soft shell on the menu. So man, you didn't know you needed in your life like a fried soft shell sandwich that was like in the water yesterday with a side of pork spares, but you do. Man, that's 2. Third for Raleigh Durham, man. Actually, Damf Barbecue out in Cary. So he's an up and comer as well. Nick Damf, really solid food, does all of the Texas staples. But the thing on his menu that is unique right now, man, is he calls it pork brisket. It's really just like, and I thought it was like the breast of a pig. It's actually just a belly that he cooks like a brisket. But I've not had anyone else doing belly in quite that way. And man, then down further north, man, Smith Smokehouse and Smoothies. So a husband and wife team, man. Rashad, I think his wife's name is Ashley. Really phenomenal stuff too, man. I met them at a festival and they did it was a smoked pork belly mac and cheese with barbecue sauce, man, and it blew my whole mind. So yeah, I mean, and that's just Raleigh, man. We went from like a barbecue desert to having an embarrassment of riches in barbecue, man. It's a good place to be.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, the next couple are going to be a little bit easier to answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Red or blue?
Oh man, it's just that could go a lot of ways, man. We're talking college teams.
We're in the Tar Heel State.
Okay. I'm an NC State guy, so that's where I'm rolling.
Red all the way. Is barbecue a verb or a noun?
I would say barbecue is a noun. Personally, I get that, hey, we're gonna go barbecue. I'm not British, man. Barbecue is the thing I'm gonna serve, right? I don't call any of my cookers. They're not barbecues. They're grills or smokers or pits. Barbecue's a noun.
And that, my friends, is the lowdown from Kyle Sutton, the founder of Butts for Babies and a Carolina pitmaster doing really cool things in his barbecue craft. Thanks so much for joining us today, Kyle. Let me tell you right now, episode number 50 has just closed right here. One of our best episodes, certainly in the last several, maybe one of the best in the first 50. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Tigger. This was great. Had a blast.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you out on the barbecue trail again.
All right. Look forward to it.
You've been listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show on the Mesh.tv network of podcast. Be sure to visit us online at lowslowbbqshow.com. That's where you'll find the blog and you can hear other podcast episodes. If you like what you hear in the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, be sure to give us a 5-star rating in your favorite podcast network. That helps other people find our podcast. Remember, visit lowslowbbqshow.com. You can subscribe to the Lowdown newsletter. We'll send you the latest podcasts, blogs, recipes, barbecue events, all that and more directly to your inbox every Tuesday morning. Special thanks again to our guest, Kyle Sutton, as well as our producer, Andrew Moose, and the whole team at the Mesh.tv network of podcast. Most especially, thank you for listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. Remember, for the best barbecue and the best barbecue podcast, make it low and slow.